Hello, wherever you may be watching us. This is the Spotlight interview on Gambiana. I am your host, Adama Makasuba, and my guest in this show is Madi Jobarteh, the Executive Director of Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. Mr. Jobarteh, welcome to this interview.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I would just want you to tell us who is Madi Jobarteh.
Well, my name is Madi Jobarteh. So I'm the Executive Director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, which is a human rights organization promoting good governance, accountability, and the rule of law in the Gambia.
Many people know you as activists in this country. And then if I may ask you, what is the state of activism in this country since for the past years and now? How would you gauge them?
Well, in my view, every citizen should be an activist. But yes, for some reason we have sort of identified certain people as the activist. But to say an activism is when a person or a citizen realizing his rights and duties and recognizing the state of affairs in his or her society, dedicates himself or herself to promoting justice, promoting transparency, accountability, to stand against abuse, violations of human rights and abuse of power, corruption, and things like that. And over the years, particularly in the past 10 years, we've seen both as individuals and organizations engaging in activism in different forms. Yes, some are engaging in protest, consider positive action, direct action. But also we've seen organizations and individuals engage in litigation, and it's growing, even at a slow pace. Probably not fully organized and not fully, guided by strategy and so on. But the fact that there is action taking place, that is noticeable. And so, so I would say the activism, the culture, the practice of activism is growing. And so we'll have to see what it turns out as we're moving.
So one of the key areas or key issues that many people talked about in this country is poor governance and then corruption. If you are to talk about this thing under the Barrow regime or Barrow leadership, how would you gauge the Barrow's leadership in terms of fighting corruption and then ensuring that the country has good governance?
Yeah, so sadly, the Barrow administration, President Barrow, as the president, has no interest in fighting corruption. He doesn't have the will and he doesn't have the commitment, which explains why corruption is so widespread and entrenched in his government, which goes unchecked and unpunished. And that is a huge concern because corruption is the foundation for human rights violations. Corruption denies citizens the rights in terms of the social and economic rights because it denies them goods and services. But corruption also is the basis that fuels and strengthens bad governance, and which eventually translates it to dictatorship. And every human rights violation you see, every instance of disregard of the law, every instance of abuse of office is a manifestation of corruption, whether to give money, body, or to get position, status quo, to maintain position or status, and many other vices that would come as a result of corruption. So corruption is a very dangerous phenomenon, and you know, which is, as I said, widespread in the Gambia. Unfortunately, the president doesn't have a commitment because the laws are here that combat corruption. The institutions are here for that purpose. The president himself has sworn to an oath of office to uphold the constitutional laws of the Gambia. We have a lot of institutions that have exposed corruption, such as the National Audit Office, such as the National Assembly itself, but also there are parliamentary, parliamentary inquiries, commissions of inquiries that he himself has established, which have all exposed corruption. Investigated journalists and journalists in general have exposed corruption. Civil society organizations have equally exposed and reported widespread incidents of corruption. And so what is required really is for the president to insist for the rule of law, to enforce the law. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. So that even where inquiries or investigations expose corruption in a particular institution and mention particular individuals, in the standard would be to at minimum interdict those cases, suspend them, and of course then prosecute. But we have seen in this country how each president would either ignore those reports or even promote those individuals mentioned, or redeploy them to another institution, so that from cabinet ministers all the way down across the public sector, we have secret senses of that. So clearly showing that indeed this president is so committed to fight corruption.
So 10 years since he came to power, and then he is seeking another term. As a citizen in this term, do you think he deserves to be elected in office again?
No, he doesn't deserve to be elected. First and foremost, because Gambians have long agreed, accepted, and no Gambia to serve for more than 10 years. That has been established for the past 30 years. When we are confronted with a military regime in 1994, the head of that military regime, Yahya Jammeh, had declared that no Gambian should serve more than 10 years. And in 1996, they instituted a constitutional review process. And the draft, and what came out from the people is that they want presidential term limits. But in the end, you don't have that in the 1997 constitution because they removed that, the junta, from the first draft. So that what was presented to the keeping was a constitutional draft that had no term limit. Now, in the course of his 22 years misrule, Gambians have constantly called for term limits. Our opposition parties, for example, individually and collectively have called for presidential term limits. In 2012, they constituted themselves into an electoral alliance and submitted a 14-point proposal to the government in 2015. And one of the demands was the introduction of term limits. And we know even when Solon Sateng came out to protest on April 14 in 2016, one of his demands was presidential term limits. Now, when we got to 2017 or even 2016, when the opposition formed the alliance under the leadership of Adama Barrow, in his presidential manifesto 2016, as well as in the MOU, he stated categorically that the fundamental menace afflicting our country's independence has been self-packaging for, so that there was a need to therefore introduce term limits. And so that was one of the key demands and key purposes that the coalition made, that it got the vote. So that when Barrow was installed in 2017, by 2018, he had established this Presidential Review Commission. And again, he reiterated his commitment, in that inauguration ceremony, and even before that in multiple places that no government should serve for more than 10 years. When we had the 2020 draft, presidential term limits have been stated there, even though it failed. But even in the 2024 Barrow papers, presidential term limit was put there. So what this indicates, Adama, is that the Gambian people want presidential term limit. The only reason it is not in the law is because the elected people refuse to put it in the law. But the sovereign owners of this country, the will of the people is that 10 years. Now, apart from that, it is very evident that one of the leading challenge of Africa since independence, end of colonial, has been self-perpetuating rule. Because of self-perpetuating rule, dictatorship has become widespread in Africa. Coup d'etats have become normalized in Africa. Corruption has been normalized in Africa. Civil wars have been normalized in Africa. And the poverty and deprivation and all the problems of Africa, at the center and front of all of them, is self-perpetuating. And we have seen since introduction of term limits in the few African countries that have done so, how it has provided space for peace, for peaceful transfer of power, and even for progress. So the evidence is clear that indeed we need presidential term limits for peace and stability, for progress, for good governance, and above all, for the sovereign will of the people to prevail. So on the basis of that, Barrow has no justification to seek a third term. And it is shameful for anyone to want to refer to the 1997 Constitution as a justification for a presidential term limit. Either that person must be very dishonest or very ignorant of the history of the 1997 Constitution, at the particular of the political history of the Gambia from 1994 at least until 2026. So on the basis of these things, there is no justification whatsoever for Barrow to seek a third term. He should step down and get somebody contest for the NPP, but he should respect the 2 terms he has served and end there. Because that is what he himself promised, that no government should be in power for more than 10 years. Bearing in mind, in fact, he came on a clear ticket, which has gone to 5 years and now 10 years. So, so for me, this is my position. And I want to tell Gambians, if Barrow refuses to step down, that is not to contest the 2026 election, but decides to go ahead, I urge all Gambians that nobody vote for him. That we, by our votes, make sure we institute term limits in this country. And not just Barrow, but my call is to all Gambians that never ever should we allow any Gambian to be president for more than 10 days.
Yeah, but there are again that, okay, the 1997 Constitution does not give a term limit, so they are relying on the 1997 Constitution.
Yeah, so that is why I said that is a dishonesty and ignorance. So someone who is ignorant about the history of the 1997 Constitution or Gambia's political history can speak like that. Because the 1997 Constitution has a context. We have a history experience from 1994 to today. And as I said, whether it is Yahya Jammeh or Adama Barrow, the political parties, they have all said multiple times at different times that no Gambian should serve for more than 10 years. And those statements, those positions cannot be disregarded because they are not being law. They cannot be disregarded. Those statements are very relevant, very genuine, very legitimate, that we need to consider. But at the same time, it is to say that the only reason the term limits are not in the 1997 Constitution, if one knows the history, is simply because the military junta, which presided over the draft of the 1996 draft, removed term limits from the final draft. So that when they presented to the people at a referendum in 1996, was one without term limits. But the constitutional building process that emerged in 1936, what came out from the people was that they want a term limit. And this was repeated in 2018, when the CRC was formed. In their consultations with Gambians at home and abroad, there was a general consensus that we need a 2-term limit. And that was what was in the draft also that will be National Assembly. So that just indicates, even if it is not passed in the law, or that draft also was not passed, what is evident is that the people of the Gambia want a term limit. So if you don't have the term limit today, it's unfortunate. But what is even more unfortunate is for someone to want to use that as a justification that Barrow can stand for a third term, simply because 99 Constitution does not contain it. That either you don't know the history, which is very important, or you know it, but you just want to be dishonest about it. So that's how I see it.
So through your social media commentaries, many of the government supporters, they describe you as one of their critics, which warranted the president to even single-handedly mention your name in one of his address to the elders of Banjul. How did you feel when the president single-handedly named you as one of his critics?
Well, I felt concerned, and I'm still concerned, because it's a threat. Yes, it's a threat, and it's unwarranted. That is illegal, it's unconstitutional. It's a defamation of my character. It's a threat to my life, because, as president, in our context, you are the leader to now look at a citizen and make such a declaration. You are effectively inviting other citizens to also go and attack that citizen. And they can attack that citizen, in many, many ways, including physical. What the president said is false, completely false. It's unfounded. It's not true. Because there's no evidence that I want to burn down this country. Now, what I am doing, and what I have always been doing, which I continue to be, is to monitor the Gambia government, which is my government, right? And all the agents, the public officials that work in it, to monitor them, to hold them to account as according to the law. And so that is what I've been doing. So I think if the president is a truthful person, if he's an honest person, if he's a courageous person, it is for him to challenge me on the issues I raise, to defend his policies, to defend his track record, to defend his performance, than to deflect it into falsehoods and malicious, threats, characterization, misrepresentation. So I am concerned, and I intend to hold him to account for that statement today or tomorrow. I know correct constitution gives immunity to the president for things that he or she does as a president or even ex-president. But I intend to challenge that, to hold him to account someday.
So meaning, if you say you intend to hold him to account, anytime he steps down from power, then you will do that. Take him to court.
Yeah, if the constitution has changed, which I don't agree with that part of the constitution, the 1990 constitution, which I think is one of the many reasons we need to change it. A president should not be above scrutiny. A president is not God. A president is not anything special, anyone special, it's just a public servant. And so a president should be held account for his words and actions. But if you have a constitution, that a dictatorship created to protect a president, so that they can misconduct themselves, they can abuse and then get protected, that's unfortunate. But for me, I have attempted to hold him to account, because I've lodged a complaint to the National Human Rights Commission to hold him to account. Because knowing that the Constitution protects him to go to court. But any day, whether he steps down or he does step down, but any day the Constitution is changed, that immunity is removed, I'll hold it to account for that attack against my dignity and my life.
So the other argument that his supporters always make is that they said you rarely criticize the opposition whenever they make mistake, but you only focus on the government.
I criticize the government.
Yeah, more than the opposition.
Okay.
Even though the opposition sometimes they may make some mistakes, but still now they said you don't focus on those.
But again, it is two things: whether political ignorance or dishonest. But the opposition are not illiterate, and government is a completely different body. The government is the one, by law, is mandated to manage the affairs and the resources of this country, which entails their rights and freedoms and the needs of Gambians, for which they are provided resources, either directly through our taxes, to the loans they get and grants they get in our name, and other means. So the duty and the right of every citizen is not to praise the government, because at the end of the day, the president, we are paying the president, they are paying ministers, they are paying parliamentaries. Beyond and above, we pay each other as citizens. We are giving them incentives. We are protecting their lives in every way you can imagine. So, what praise therefore should one make? So that whatever they do that is good and in line with the law is what we are paying for them. You don't need to talk about that. What we need to talk about is to check them, since we are paying them, that any deviation, the slightest deviation they make, erase it. Now, if to you that is criticism, that's fine. If to somebody that is accountability, so be it. If for somebody it is about being a citizen, that is it. So for me, I have no praise whatsoever for any government or any public official. You can never do anything that is worthy of praise, because we are paying you already and giving you life, quality of life that is above what we give to ourselves. But look at the ministers. Look at the president. Have you ever seen the president moving and see the comfort that he was? How many of us went into State House to look at the living quarters of the president? Maybe no incentive he has created for the president. And that president is nothing special. It's just like you and me. It's like today, if Adama Barrow becomes president, is Adama, what is special about this Adama more than me? What is special about me more than you? But on top of that, we go and give you as the president, a lifestyle that is way above any that we can imagine. Yeah. So in that case, why would I waste my time to praise that president or that government, that official, or that institution? No, I'm not ever going to do that. What I will do is to hold that card, because every citizen has a relationship with the government, and that relationship from the citizen is accountability. From the government is service. That's our relationship. So we the citizens should hold the government to account. That is monitoring government, crying out for what is wrong, demanding justice. Demanding the rule of law, adhere to the rule of law. That's our relationship, that's all. We don't have any role to praise for the president. No. Yes, if they build a good road, so be it, because it's our money. They build a good road, even if they build a diamond road that they fly, it's our money. It's not from the president's pocket. We've paid for it, and we have paid them as well as individuals. So that is not to praise. But if the road there is what broken stick on the road, we should complain about it. Seriously complain. Yes. So those government supporters, I don't even understand how is using candidate government support. I don't. That's the highest level of political ignorance because government is not any kunda. So the idea of government support it doesn't appear in my mind. So those who are saying that, I guess some are just politically ignorant, unfortunate, but others know and they are just being politically dishonest. And I don't know these two people whether I can help the politically ignorant folks, and educate them so that they get the awareness and so on. So see, this is it. I mean, so I'm not a government supporter. I don't see myself ever being a government supporter, any government.
So if we are to meet President Barrow right now, what advices will you give him?
Well, first is to say that he should step down. But before that, because December is these next 4 months, is to enforce the law, to exercise the will to enforce the law. That is to make sure public institutions are performing according to law. Because Adama, the problem in our country is that our public institutions are not performing as according to the law. That is why we have the level of development in this country. All right. They are running public institutions, they are delivering public services, and their convenience, supported to their own pace. So that when you look at the quality of public services, public goods, infrastructure, anywhere, you see, the weaknesses, you see the erratic nature of delivery of public services, you see the poor quality of public services, goods and services across this country, which we have suffered for a long time to date. At the same time, you can see the mismanagement of public resources. They have gone widespread. It's a culture of this country. These past 2 weeks, they are following National Assembly, what is coming. If you look at the newspapers, every year the headlines are National Assembly said millions missing there, millions missing here, and so on. You need the National Money Office's import, this is what you see. So, the corruption and the abuse of office, the nepotism, the favoritism, the politicization, and the weaponization of public institutions. You can see the police, how they engage in arbitrary arrests and then impose bogus charges on citizens for merely exercising their rights. Or where you see, whether it's Ministry of Justice or the police, disregarding court orders. The court ruled and it disregarded, violating the separation of powers principle, violating the Constitution. That is the character of this government. So if anyone should advise Mr. Barrow, is to make him realize the danger this country faces because of that. And it is because of that poverty is widespread in this country. This country is not a poor country. No. The resources Gambia government obtains are more than enough to provide air-conditioned classrooms from nursery school to tertiary institutions, from Baki to Basse. We have the resources to air-condition every public health facility in this country, provide them with the most modern medical equipment and licensed drugs. I challenge the president. I challenge the Minister of Finance. I challenge any government official to a public debate to tell me that Gambia does not have these resources. Gambia has enough resources to make this country food self-sufficient. It is a shame that today they are signing an agreement to import rice from Indonesia. So you can go on and on and on. We have the capacity, the resources to have energy security, to produce the bulk of our electricity and supply the rest of the country. Water. We have the means to build a stadium in every administrative capital in this country. a model state for that matter. The resources are here. So the only reason that is not happening because public institutions, public officials, they mismanage the resources, they embezzle the resources, they fail to perform their duties efficiently and effectively as they should. They disregard the law, and nothing happens, no consequences. So if anyone should tell Barrow, if you want a strong legacy, if you want to salvage this country, your job is very easy. Enforce the law. But Mr. Barrow isn't interested. The other commission did not ban a number of officials. He brought them back and take them back to government. That evidence is enough that he is not interested to enforce the law. So if I should meet him, these are the two things I'm ever going to tell him. Don't contest 2026 in fulfillment of your own promise to the Gambian people, in fulfillment of your own manifesto to the Gambian people. Number two, enforce the law. Yes. The arrogance and the misconduct, the indiscipline in the public sector is beyond imagination. This country, this government is a lawless government. And this is precisely why lawlessness is widespread in this country. Walk around our communities, people throw things everywhere. See people throw things. People take gravel, sand, and dump it in front of their gate, walking the road. Nobody cares. Yes. People go to work anytime. They close anytime. You are driving in this traffic, people disregard traffic rules. Complete lawlessness is what is in this society. And that is because we have a president who doesn't care about the law. And Adama, that's all we need. You don't need a hands-on president. You don't need a religious president. You don't need a peaceful president. You don't need, all those kind of things. What we need is a law-abiding president. Yes. First and foremost, a law-abiding president committed to the enforcement of the law. That will solve 99% of our problems.
So even though you don't belong to any political party, but recently we've seen that, there has been some fragmentation within the opposition, and because their aim to form coalition is now collapsing a bit. Do you think this is going to affect their chance of challenging the president in the upcoming election?
Well, I'm not sure I'm really interested to talk about their chances. And yes, I see efforts at building a coalition. And I agree that you need a coalition to remove Barrow, because Barrow has to be removed. And in best chance is when all the political parties come on one ticket. Now, but my issue with the coalition issue is the approach, which I don't agree with. So I hear party legs, I hear candidate legs. Both approaches, I think, may not salvage this country. And they can remove Barrow, of course, with any of those approaches. But if you are interested in salvaging this country, that we have recognized that since independence, this republic is standing on faulty grounds, and there is need for system change, then we need another approach, and not this, because party-led or candidate-led will only produce for us a 2017 scenario. Because 2016 was always a candidate-led. And whichever candidate wins, whichever party wins, there is no doubt that the first day they enter the office, their objective will be self-consolidation. So that within that 5 years given to them, they are going to use it to consolidate themselves in power, like how Barrow did, and the politicians that came around him did when they went into the cabinet. So for me, I'm completely opposed to party-led or candidate-led. What I support is an agenda-led approach for system change. That all the parties, all the politicians agree that because of the political situation of this country, which did not start in 2016 or 1994, but since independence, we have not been on a real Republican democratic structure. And that is what has produced for us a country as we have, impoverished, indebted, corrupt, unequal, unjust. If we want to have a truly Republican state, we need to prioritize system change and achieve that. What we do is therefore, all the politicians, the political parties, be willing to sacrifice, to step back, and together we work to identify a non-partisan, a non-politician, a technocrat, expert, who understands policy and governance. That we will identify this person and rally behind this person. So that this person, we will give that person 3 years maximum. And the agenda is system change. That is constitutional, legal, and institutional reforms to restructure the foundation of his country. And when that person wins, they will also make sure he identifies similar individuals to form the cabinet. No politician will enter the cabinet. All right. And we will go to the National Assembly to facilitate the legal reform that will come. So that within 3 years, based on a work plan, we are able to, establish proper constitutional, legal, institutional foundations, frameworks for this country. So that at the end of that, that government, a referendum, a third republic is brought in. Now, that government will step down first at the end of that government because a new constitution has gone into force. And those people, that president and his cabinet, they will not contest that election at all. So we go back and the parties now move election. And whoever wins, so be it. But then whoever wins, you will find in place a whole new state to manage. And part of that transition will be intense civic education. So that people are politically aware about the rights and duties of citizens, about the powers and obligations of the state, and the benefits that the state should provide all of us. So, that is my start. But party-led, candidate-led, at the minimum, it can give us regime change. All right. 2016, we have regime change. January was removed, but it did not give us system change. Even though that was what President Barrow and the coalition promised us. But when we saw Barrow as a politician, as a candidate, he came to power. And initially, his closest party was UDP, and they aligned with him. We saw that. We saw how he brought politicians into the cabinet, party leaders. And we saw all the consolidation, the entrenchment mechanisms and all of those things to, serve themselves. In the end, naturally, that coalition collapsed. So we are going to see a repeat of that in 2026. If this party-led or candidate-led wins, 1 year, maximum 2 years, the coalition will also collapse. Because that's the nature of the game.
So finally, there has been a debate over whether to bring back the death penalty to cope the rise in crime, especially these killings that are happening recently in this country. Do you support that idea?
No, I don't support it. We can understand people are frustrated, people are angry, people are worried. Personally, I'm worried. I'm very concerned about my security now who are interrogated. But the death penalty, which also has been objectively established. There has been a lot of studies across the world about the death penalty. And it's been found that it's not a deterrent. Yes. If you look at the nature of these killings, these murders, you realize that those who commit them are not necessarily committing them because they know about the death penalty or the death penalty is here or not here. No. And the studies have also shown in many, many ways why death penalty is not a deterrent. It's in many countries have abandoned it. In fact, I think must be a few weeks ago I saw in the news in the UK a woman who was executed, I think about 70 years ago. Only new evidence to find that actually her crime, if properly, when I was miscarriage of justice, otherwise she shouldn't have been executed. But her life was taken and do not bring back her life. And the culture of, a life for a life, I don't think we should agree to that because life, is sacred. You lie, you don't take your life. Of course, someone can take someone's life, but that would for me justify me to take your life or the state to take your life. So the right to life for me is absolute. Nobody should take anyone's life. So taking life cannot be a punishment for another taking someone's life. Cannot be a justification. So that what people need to be looking at really is to understand why this is happening and what can we do to deal with it. And these killings we see in our communities, they are social and cultural, but they are also political. That is, in terms of, in terms of the state, it functions the obligations of the state. So that if you like a society like ours, where there's high unemployment, there's high substance abuse, for example, and there's high levels of discrimination, patriarchy. Then you get to understand why this is happening, like a husband beating the wife to death, or co-wives fighting and killing each one. Okay, we can see the killing, but behind it, the circumstances, the background to it is, patriarchy, power relations. But also the youth, who are the youth? Who are the ones killing each other? What would they want? From the upbringing in their homes, what are they engaged in? So that at the end of the day, you look at some of those people being the killed. You look at their profile, you can see inadequacies. You can see what they lack, whether it's about object, whether it's about economic well-being, whether it's about, proper social well-being, things like that. The nature of our communities, how substance abuse is going on, even the corruption that is taking place. So that also relates to how the state, therefore, is starting to create the opportunities. Because if someone kills someone, we are outraged. But imagine someone leaving the Gambia, going through the Atlantic Ocean and drowning, because says, I'm going looking for greener pastures. Hundreds of our people are dying. Should they die the death penalty for that? Because those youths, why are they leaving? Because we have a state, and the state should provide options, opportunities for citizens. If we have 1, 2, 10 youths going to the back where let's say they are going, majority of Gambian youth stay in. You may say, well, in any case, even in the most caring government states, you have those who just are deviants. But when you have a practice where thousands of young people across communities, then you cannot fail to realize that there is huge deprivation and poverty and unemployment and just lack of hope in that society. So it raises the question, what is the state doing? Who takes responsibility? If 100 Gambians die in a boat in the Sahara Desert, somebody should take responsibility for that. But nobody takes responsibility for that. But if one boy and two boys over there and they kill this one, you said there should be death penalty for this boy. Yes, that is serious. But I'm just saying this for us to reflect on the bigger picture. That once one boy or one, are killing each other in our communities, every week we hear these things. But at the same time, we are seeking tens of our people just perish at once in the Sahara Desert, in the high waters. Why? Because they said they are leaving their homeland to go and look for greener pasture. Why are they leaving? Right. So, I think these are the things people need to look at. A death penalty, we will just kill more people, but the death penalty is not going to reduce murders in this country. No. So for me, I'm opposed to the death penalty. It is sad that it is still in our constitution. Again, the failure of the states, because the Nigerian constitution has said it clear that 10 years after the coming into force of this constitution, the National Assembly will review the desirability of the death penalty. Now it's 30 years, they've never done that. So that if they had done that review and agree that the death penalty should be removed, maybe the next other thing they'll be looking at, the state will be looking at, okay, how do we prevent murders? How do we prevent it? So I think it's the conversation we should be having as a country.
Thank you very much, Madi, for granting us this interview. But before we draw the curtain, I would just allow you to say your closing remarks on this interview.
Well, it is to say that the salvation of the Gambia lies in the hands of each and every Gambian equally. You can perform your duties, all right. You can exercise them right, or you can fail to do so. Yes. But ultimately, the kind of Gambia we have reflects the kind of Gambians we have. If we have Gambians where the majority want to exercise their citizen rights, their sovereign rights and duties with passion, with commitment, with determination, I think we will have a better Gambia. Yes. But if you have a Gambia where majority you don't want to perform that, and then we want to, exercise our citizenship through partisan approaches, through party, tribe, religion, ritual, and stuff like that, nepotism, favoritism, and stuff like that, then we will have a crooked state. Yes, we'll have a republic in distress, and that is what we have since independence. So the choice is ours. So each and every citizen must ask himself or herself, am I performing my citizenship rights and duties, with allegiance only to the Gambia, with passion and determination, commitment, with honesty, or not? So the kind of Gambia we have, for me, it manifests that kind of citizen. Okay.
Thank you, Madi Jobarteh, for granting us this interview. The Executive Director of Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. That's all we have for you in this interview. And then I've been your host, Adama Makasuba. Till next time, bye-bye.